All right, welcome everyone. We're waiting for probably about another 20 families or so. But for the sake of time, let's go ahead and we'll get started. We're going to open up with actually a welcome and prayer from Dr. Marinelli. But before we do, I just want to go ahead and draw everyone's attention to both the chat and the Q&A features. We'll certainly try our best to address any questions that come up just sort of on the fly in that Q&A box or in the chat. And then I also have a few pre-submitted questions that we'll try our best to get to at the end. So Dr. Marinelli, I'll turn it over to you for our welcome and prayer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Steele. Well, good evening and welcome, junior parents, to another school year, probably the start of which we've had like no any other. It's been very, very new to all of us, but very rewarding. And I'll say a thing about that in a minute. But I'm sure as parents of juniors, now upperclassmen, that college selection is on your mind. What colleges and universities your children might be interested in attending, and be assured that I know they're here tonight, that our college counseling staff, Mr. Bohm, Ms. Souza, Mrs. Lyon, are prepared to walk you through the process in spite of or in light of the pandemic, and making all the accommodations we need. And so I really am grateful for their presence and how we're negotiating through all this. But I know that's a big year for you all. So thank you for being with us. And also, I just want to say thanks, because I said this to our students this morning. Thank you for working together with us to make the opening of school so successful. I think it's because of your encouragement and also your sons and daughters' sense of responsibility that we've opened the school year in a healthy and safe manner. Community is one of those core values we talk about a lot at Archmere, and with that comes the other word, respect. And it is amazing to see how respectful they have been following the guidelines every day, and just with each other, and just in my interactions and walking around campus and talking to them. I know they've had to adapt to a different schedule, to synchronous, asynchronous learning, to a variety of things. And these guys have been adapting since last March. So I'm really, really grateful for that, and grateful for their just sense of being open and working with us. Interestingly, we had a mass this morning. It was our opening school liturgy. Typically, we would have had it on Monday with the entire assembly, but because of social distancing, we've decided to split these masses up on Wednesday. So this morning we had our freshmen in two sections. We had two masses, again, for social distancing purposes. And what struck me was the first reading from the mass, which is from St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. And it is a very familiar reading to most of us if we've ever gone to a wedding. And I always, when I thought about that, and both Father Zagarella and Father McLaughlin were there, and they preached about this sense of community and this sense of respecting one another, but it's also this mandate of loving your neighbor as yourself, right? It's not one of our core words, but it's certainly embedded in it. And so I'd just like to read to you that one section, and then I'll lead that on with a prayer for this evening, and just with a sense of gratitude from all of us, for all of you, and the support you're giving to your sons and daughters through a challenging time. I know that these are really unusual experiences for all of us, but especially for young people who expect a certain kind of high school experience. It will be an experience, and we're going to make it as exciting and wonderful for them as possible, be assured. So here's an excerpt from that, from Paul's letter. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not jealous, love is not pompous, it is not inflated, it is not rude, it does not seek its own interests, it is not quick-tempered, it does not brood over injury, it does not rejoice over wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. So faith, hope, love remain these three, but the greatest of these is love. And so I offer this prayer for all of us this evening. We can put ourselves in God's presence. Oh God, you are writing a unique and yet universal story in each of our lives. Help us to know that story, a story of love, so that we may share it in a world desperate to be loved. We ask that you would show us that each one of our stories and those of our children is valuable to building a better world by spreading your love to the ends of the earth. You've written the gospel of love on our hearts, and it's a story that needs to be shared. We pray for the courage and conviction to share our personal stories with others. Amen. So have a wonderful webinar this evening. And as I said, I have to leave the meeting early to get to another appointment at 6:30, but certainly any questions you want to relay to me can be relayed through any of our panelists, or you can certainly contact me personally. And thanks again.
Thank you, Dr. Marinelli. So essentially, I'm going to kick things off just with a few light reminders. You've all been hearing from me quite a bit over the past few weeks, so I'm going to keep my portion to a minimum and really allow the other panelists to speak for the majority of the time. But I do just have our agenda here for this evening. So you see some of our other presenters here. So Tim Doherty will be talking a bit about academics, Mr. Carl Campion regarding technology as well as facilities, Bob Nawazik, here from Student Life, Danielle Dove, our new Director of Counseling, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and then Chris Bohm, Catherine Souza, and Logan Duffy from College Counseling, who will round out the evening. So I just wanted to start with a very general slide, just essentially things that I'm thinking about. I've been thinking a lot about cultivating empathy. We obviously live in a time when things just seem very uncertain. There's a lot of changes that your sons and daughters, that educators, administrators, that we've all been going through, and reaching out to one another in these times of uncertainty and adjustment, I think really goes a long way. And I said to the freshmen at Mass this morning, what a wonderfully calming and tranquil way to start my day in the presence of these wonderful adolescents who really are so resilient in the way that they are handling these new situations. And so I've been thinking a lot about that. How can we reach out to one another and make meaningful connections after such a time of separation and isolation? I've also been thinking about vigilance. How do we hold people accountable while also making everyone feel comfortable? And so when it comes to health and safety, I applaud all of you who have been, submitting your health screenings prior to 8 a.m. every morning, have been working with us as we establish these new routines, which leads me to my third point. As Dr. Marinelli said, we're all establishing new routines in this strange year, many of which I feel really proud of. I feel super proud of the schedule that we've put forth and its ability to meet the needs of our students. But that being said, we all have to adapt to a new system of time management. And so that goes for faculty and students alike. We're obviously navigating some new situations here, and students have an increased amount of autonomy on campus. But that being said, as I've been conversing with students over the past few weeks, they've been pleasantly surprised by the lesser workload that they've been taking home. And I certainly hope that helps with their mental health as well. My last 2 points are interconnected, self-advocacy as well as communication. We always hope that, Archmere students walk off our campus after their graduation feeling that they are empowered and they are ready to navigate anything that the higher ed world or the professional world would throw at them. And I think that is through the building of self-advocacy skills and their ability to communicate as adults with not only their peers, but with faculty, staff, and administration. And so I would encourage them to keep the lines of communication open, not only with me, with Dr. Marinelli, with our faculty, with Mr. Doherty, Mr. Nawazik. This is new for all of us, and keeping the lines of communication open is certainly going to help in that realm of self-advocacy, and will certainly help us to make any adjustments that we need to make on the fly. So a few gentle reminders. The Magnus Health app, we have been doing excellently with this over the past week as we sort of establish and get settled into those new routines, but please be sure that you submit that by 8 a.m. It really should be submitted sometime between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. as it's meant to be a deterrent for anyone who is not well to come to campus. Additionally, a few other reminders from Mrs. Hendrickson. So medications need to be taken, that do need to be taken during the day. They do need to come in their original packaging with the permission to administer form. So this is something that she shared with everyone. She'd be happy to share it again if necessary, but I know that many students may be looking to take those during the day. We simply need sort of the formalization behind it. And lastly, EpiPens, inhalers, both of those things can be stored in the nurse's office. Many of these are self-administered, but just to essentially give some instructions surrounding that as well. Okay. Last minute virtual accommodations. I spoke to this a little bit in my email last week, and I'd like to hit it home again here. Um, the last minute virtual accommodations, they really are meant and reserved for those who are taking health and safety precautions. So whether that's you didn't pass your health screening in the morning, or you're following the decision tree from the health and safety document and you need to quarantine until a negative test, or a doctor's note, is requiring you to stay home. Any other one-off last minute absences, things like oversleeping, travel, things of that nature, it really takes away from our ability to cater to those who are following the health and safety rules. While we're offering this virtual option, we are not a full-blown cyber school, and the pace of the day does not necessarily allow teachers to be glued to their email. And so these things that are happening at the last minute that are popping up, sometimes it might be better to simply take an absence for the day, to take an early excusal for the day. Absences do still exist, and while we don't want students to abuse them, obviously, there may be times when the virtual option is just not really what it was created for, which is specifically for students who have some kind of a pre-existing condition, or feel that their health is essentially a risk to them, to others on campus. And then lastly, this is something that probably does not look new to you. This is our Safe Students online platform, which essentially is paid for by Archmere. It's a service that we pick up every year, and we would certainly encourage you to sign up for it. It's really an interesting technology. I've talked to the CEO at length over the summer, and I just wanted to make a few clarifications. That Safe Students Online, while it's monitoring the interaction of your son or daughter on their various applications and devices, it's not something that would ever send the direct post to me. Me getting the report from Safe Students Online, I am not seeing the profanity that is being used, or a particular cyberbullying statement that is being made. I am, however, getting a comprehensive report with how often those types of things are showing up on Archmere students' platforms. And so it would really help me and to help our administration as well to program looking forward. So if I notice that there's an uptick in cyberbullying speech or depression or talk of suicide or things like sexting, that's something that I can then help develop, some type of programming around, and I can work closely with the counseling office to do so. So you will get a welcome email from Safe Students Online tomorrow. It will be coming from their CEO, Tim Polizzi. He's wonderful, actually has some Archmere Connects and is really a big fan. And he's anxious and eager to help out however he can in keeping our students safe. Those that work in education will tell you that brain development really is not complete until around 23, 24, 25 years old. And so we understand that there are some risky behaviors that are happening on the internet. Obviously, this is certainly not a secret to all of us. And we've been talking as well a lot on campus about this Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. And there's certainly a reason that they use the term user for social media platforms, much like you would for a drug addiction, because our brains are hardwired to get that approval and to seek that approval online, which obviously leads us to make some interesting decisions. And so that being said, stay tuned for that email. Technical questions should really be directed to Safe Students Online directly, though I'll certainly try my best to help if I can. So that is all I have. I really wanted to try to keep things brief. And now I'm actually going to turn things over to, let me just make sure my agenda is here, to Mr. Doherty, who's going to speak about academics.
Hi, folks. Good evening. Nice to not see you, but I hope you're enjoying seeing us. And forgive my earlier show of humanity, as Mr. McCann so politely put it. There we go. All right, that's out of the way. All right, so I'm going to provide some information you might actually be familiar with, comfortable with, but it's good to name some dates and say the words to make sure we're sort of back in the swing of an academic flow. So we're coming upon, well, we just started school, but as of Wednesday, the 30th, we will have the midpoint of Q1, at which point you can certainly check My Archmere page or students' pages and see how they're faring in all of their courses. I mean, you can always do that anytime, but on that particular date, I remind teachers to have the most accurate updated grades they can put in there so you have a really firm sense of how your child is doing. A month after that, quarter one ends, and then I post report cards on my Archmere. I usually post a note to parents. I think that I do. Kids certainly know as soon as it happens, the word's out, and everybody seems to know report cards are out. But I'll shoot a message out to parents through the website, and so you can print them yourself. We don't mail home anymore. It's been quite a few years since we've done that. Just to remind you that we don't have a full year ending grade. There's no after 4 quarters, here's the final grade. We have two semester grades, semester 1 grade done, semester 2 grade done. So it's important that the quarter 1, quarter 2 work and progress is maintained at a high level, because you won't have quarter 3 and 4 to sort of bring it up any farther. It ends at the end of each semester and a quarter or semester 1. That's just good to know as a matter of course. Scheduling generally, right now we're in the midst of course changes. Friday is the last day for students to request course changes. They've been electives, drop my photography, try to get sculpture, or drop psychology to pick up anatomy, stuff like that. But that all has to end Friday. With the exception of leveling down in a course. If a student is in, say, honors physics, and it's just really rough, and as September comes, that midpoint grade comes, and it's really not where it should be, that student can still level down to college prep physics, provided we can make the schedule happen. But you have the option to do that. And you have until 1 week after quarter 1 grades are posted to do that. So leveling down from now until then is okay to do. Excuse me, whereas leveling up really has to happen very soon. I think I have a date here, the 23rd, maybe the week after, halfway through next week. But that's because if you wait too long, you're going to miss too much information, you're going to be behind, and you really can't catch up. So just be monitoring your child's work throughout the year. Be in my Archmere. If you don't know how to navigate the page, you just haven't gone in, I can certainly help you. If you contact me, not a problem. And then generally also we have a summer tutoring program in the summer, and I mention this only because it's good to avoid it. You want to be in the proper, excuse me, the proper level of the courses you're scheduled for. Don't struggle through an honors or AP class if it's going to result in a summer tutoring. You don't want that. We're glad to provide it, but it's better to avoid it. So check the grades, see that your child's comfortable with the workload, and they're maintaining the work ethic to maintain that grade. And so those are some things that you probably experienced over 2 years anyway, but I think junior counselor or the college counselors might tell you that all grades are important, but certainly this year and next, it just starts to, it leaves a different kind of mark on the college admissions process. But I'll let them speak to that. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll pass it back to Madam Theo.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Doherty. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Campion to speak about technology as well as facilities. So Mr. Campion, it's all you.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to just,
Mr. Campion, do you want me to toss it to Mr. Nowazik?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, little technology. Well, good evening. I just wanted to cover a few things concerning facilities and technology. Speaking of the facilities and our preparation to reopen and just preparing in this new time of ours, we recently completed the installation of bipolar ionization devices on the central heating and cooling systems in the St. Norbert Hall, in the Student Life Center, and the Science Building. These devices will treat the air in the fresh air makeup units that will then ultimately reach the occupied spaces, and they're designed to break down the volatile chemicals such as, say, acetone from nail polish remover, also alter bacteria and neutralize viruses as well. We we decided on that because of just our own research and reading ASHRAE documents, and the fact that these are commercial grade devices that we can also measure. We can do air quality measurements quantitatively. The science teacher and me wanted to make sure that they were not just some devices that we thought were working or we assume were working, that we should be able to do some testing as the semester progresses. We have a day porter. On some days, we have 2 day porters who are circulating buildings and wiping down and disinfecting touch points, such as door pushes, door handles, some glass windows on doors that are sometimes used to open the doors. The cafeteria is the major focus of their work, because everybody in the school community passes through that point throughout the day at some time. So they're present there consistently. And of course, we have the nightly cleaning, which is commenced as we speak right now. I feel comfortable in saying that between the bipolar ionization, the fresh air that our systems bring in, the work of the day porter, and the nightly cleaning, that we were creating a safe and clean environment for everyone in the community. We did this summer go through and decide what was socially distant and effective seating in classrooms and common spaces. You may or may not know, like, the band is currently on the stage because that it's a bigger footprint for that group of students to work, as an example. We also have increased the exterior seating and added several tables. While the weather is good on a great day like today, we have encouraged the students to be outside as much as possible. So again, I feel we've done a very thoughtful job in creating a safe campus. Onto the technology. Obviously, the focus is the laptops. And a reminder, just before I talk about some other things, these laptops are covered by 3 years of Apple Care. That covers the charger and the cable. I know the laptops are getting a lot of use in a lot of scenarios now. If you hear of any issues, please have your son or daughter come and see me. I say this again and again and again. The Apple Store is not where you want to be. You want to be working with us because of our educational connections with Apple, the pickup and delivery, and the fact that we can provide a loaner. And again, we take care of all of those things for the laptop program. A reminder also, there's 2 levels of deductible. It's like I tell the students, it's just like car insurance. There's a $99 deductible for cracked screens, and water spills are the biggest reason why there's a $299. These computers do not like water. They don't like grape juice. They don't like apple juice. They don't like coffee. They don't like any liquids. And generally they come back rebuilt if that is the case. If they need any help, they can stop in the tech center and see me or Mrs. DiPietro, or simply email support@archmereacademy.com. Also, you might want to ask your son or daughter about the backup and their data management. It is their responsibility to be leveraging the free space that Google Drive provides for all of us. It's unlimited space. And we've repeatedly discussed how Google's backup and sync is an effective tool for protecting their data. If the computer goes out for service, I verbally let Apple do what they need to do, and that may include replacing or wiping the drive, so all that work could go, and there's not a whole lot we can do if the computer is not operating when it goes out. Reminder, have your son or daughter check email regularly. I know they're juniors now, so this should not even be said, but I think we need to constantly remind students that we are email-centric school, and it's a very big part of our community's functioning. 2 other comments. First, charging. I've been a bit of a bear about making sure that they don't bring their chargers to school, and they properly charge it overnight. Now, most juniors have the older style MacBook Air, which has the little light that comes on the charger. so they know it's charging, unlike the newer computers. I don't think charging it on the floor next to the bed or in the bed overnight is a good idea for a lot of reasons. So it's important. I am a little more lenient now. We always offer chargers in the tech center, and I'm because of all the synchronous and asynchronous work they're doing with the computers. So just please remind them that that's a key thing. I always said in the past, the two things before you go to bed are brush your teeth and plug your computer in. Finally, I came late this evening. I don't know if Mrs. Steele mentioned our bandwidth issues that we had early on. We are working as diligently as possible to increase it. We've had some temporary bumps, but it's not the total bandwidth that we're ultimately heading for. But these are going to require physical line installations, which in the commercial world is not a quick process, but we are moving as quickly as we can to optimize our network. I've gone long enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Campion. I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Nawazik, who's going to talk briefly about some student life things.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Zoom. It's good to be here. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so first item, somewhat mundane. It's about the masks. We're asking that all students wear masks that don't have messages on them. We're trying to avoid political type messages or any messages that people might feel divisive about. So we want messages that are not messages, but masks that have symbols that may unify or be welcoming. So teams, college, symbols, mascots, all welcome. Certainly the AUX mask is a favorite amongst students, and that is most welcome. So some attendance issues here. In the current atmosphere, we have relaxed several important guidelines. And one of them is when students can leave. All students may leave when they're done. So when they're done classes, they can leave. And there's a process. They need to have that form signed, which can be found in your Forms tab. If you look to the top right of your screen, your name is there. If you click on that, the drop-down will provide forms, and it's found there. Once you complete that, which many people have, so that's a non-issue for most. So once that's done, students on a daily basis just use the QR codes to sign out. Those are found in the exit of St. Norbert Hall, but also in the exit of the Student Life Center. And most of them are doing that very well. So I'm usually there, someone's there to help them guide through that, but it's pretty easy and they're doing it pretty quickly. So the caveat there is once students leave for the day, they can't return. So once the sports start up, or if they have extracurriculars after school, they need to stay. The one thing we want to avoid is students leaving campus and then coming back. It's just not an ideal situation. We're responsible for your children, and we want to maintain oversight of them, supervision of them during the day. So once they leave, they can't come back. Now, if there's a doctor's appointment or something like that where they need to go to and then come back, that's acceptable. You just need to sign out in the office and have a note from the doctor or dentist or whatever it might be. But that's okay. It's just leaving for no other reason than they don't have classes. On C days, all students may arrive in time for their first period class, or their first obligation, whatever it might be. Since C days are kind of wide open for many of the students, whatever their first obligation is, they just need to be here on time for that. They need to sign in through the main entrance of the Student Life Center under the McLaughlin Mullen sign near the main office, and they can beep in there and they're signed in for the day. So absences, if your child's going to be absent, and when I mean absent, this means absent, like they're doing nothing for the day because they don't feel well, they're just sick, and that's okay. They can stay home and do nothing. Just please call the main office by 10 a.m. The extension's 811, and if no one answers, you just leave a message. And certainly if you call early before 7:30, no one will answer, but leave a message and that's okay. In terms of absences, one thing that comes up each year is vacations. one thing we're asking all families to do is respect vacation time. So we don't, it's not ideal to have students miss class time to go on vacations, because it just makes it harder on the students to make up the work. So, and especially in this COVID situation we're in, really try to limit those vacation times to the vacation times on the calendar. That is greatly appreciated. Now, with all of this going on, we have lots of families requesting their child be transitioning to virtual schooling. So if you're going to do that, please email me as soon as possible. That is better than calling. An email I can check in my class if I'm teaching, and I can relay that to the teachers as soon as possible. So as Katie stated earlier, we're asking these be related to COVID or periods of home rest or injury, not just, if the student's not feeling well, it's okay to take a day off. But whatever it might be, just please email me as soon as you think that's going to have to happen, so I can communicate that to the teachers. And along that, the reason for that is we want our students on campus. This is an unprecedented situation for us, but the goal is to get all our students here. As a teacher, it's so much better when all the kids are in class, and I realize that some of them might not be, but if the families don't feel safe about that, that's why we have the remote option. But if they can be there, that's great. If not, just please notify me as soon as you can. If a student attends virtually, they must abide by the virtual guidelines. We put that in the handbook. So in terms of, they need to be there on time. I think it's always a good idea for them to log into the class Zoom as, earlier than the class begins. Most teachers put it on a waiting room, so they're sitting there and you click on it and you just ask them to join, and it's real quick and easy. But in terms, they have to have a uniform top on and these things. So please make sure your students are aware of those when they join the virtual classroom. Now, in terms of regular attendance, we're asking that students, if you're coming to school, especially in terms of sports, eligibility ends at 11:15. So that is homeroom right now under this schedule that we're under. So please have your students there by 11:15. Tell them they need to be there by 11:15, or they won't be eligible for sports or even extracurriculars after school. That's an important deadline. And then 12 o'clock has been the rule for attendance during the day. If students arrive after 12 or are going to arrive after 12, we're going to ask that they just remain home. This has been our policy since at 12 o'clock, we don't have much left of the school day. It's sort of past the half point. So at that point, they won't be able to attend. Excused lates to school still remain the same. They're documented medical appointments, legal appointments, or important family situations that arise. Please communicate those to the main office as soon as you can. And if for some reason something happens where your child needs to, they wake up late or they don't feel well right away, and whatever it might be, sometimes they get stuck in traffic. We'll allow that. We'll allow the parent to excuse that. You can call us, let us know they're going to be late for whatever reason you deem acceptable, and we'll do that 3 times. And that's kind of the balance we've struck over the years to maintain the integrity of the handbook and what we think should be excused with what the real world, happens, with what happens to these students on their way to school. So that's that. So just to finish here, some big issues that face the students. These are really what we're most concerned with on a day-to-day basis. Academic honesty. For juniors, this is a big year. This is the year where college really begins to happen for them, and there's big stakes. So I feel like when academic honesty happens here at school, it's about pressure on the students. They may feel a sense of having no time, or they're trying to make everything happen at once and they make a bad decision. So if you sense they're under pressure, counsel them to talk to guidance and help them, make a better decision. I always tell the students when they're in academic honesty trouble, it's really better just to take a bad grade than to take this other alternative. And certainly if they talk to their teachers ahead of time and let them know they're under stress, every teacher is going to give them, leniency. They'll do something to try and help them. But once they make a bad decision, it's much harder to help them. So talk to teachers, talk to guidance. Bullying and harassment, always a concern. And the students at this age or older, they're involved in more things outside of school. And that sometimes breeds more of this type of online behavior. So to us, to me, especially in the guidance counselors that I've spoken with, junior year, senior year, as they get older, some of these issues become more serious rather than the more petty stuff maybe at the freshman and sophomore level. So please just keep talking to your children about that, and keep an eye on their online behavior, talking to them about that, because that can really become a pretty divisive issue on campus at this age. And lastly, weekend parties. This is a tough issue because we can't regulate this stuff. This is really up to the families. It's up to the parents. It's up to the kids. And in this climate, we're doing our best here on campus to provide a safe and responsible climate for the students, where they can be safe and as safe or free from this virus as possible. But if people are allowing lots of kids to come over their house and there's drinking and there's things like this, it undermines a lot of things. So I'm really asking that families be responsible. And if you're going to have kids over to your house, you're going to have students over to your house, please take precautions and be smart, and really keep an eye on the kids. This is really going to, in my mind, this is going to decide how well we get along here this semester. And so far it's been good, but we really need to all be vigilant and pull together as a community here. So I thank you for that. And in general, if you have any sense your child needs help, please contact guidance. All of these things I'm listing here on the screen begin with guidance, and then I get involved and we try to figure this out and where we need to go. So that's all I need to say, and I'll turn it back over to Katie at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Nowazik. So now going to turn it over to Miss Danielle Dove, class of 93. So we're welcoming her back to the Archmere family. I mean, she never left. She left physically, but now she's back. And so I'd like to turn it over to Danielle, who's going to speak to essentially what's going on in counseling. As Mr. Nowazik said, obviously this is a key year, and so we want to work together to make sure that your students are supported. So Miss Dove, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. How are you today? Can't hear back from you, so it is a little challenging. So I realize that. So I'm going to share my screen. One moment. Okay. So I'm coming to you as the 11th grade counselor, and I wanted to give you our office vision statement. And so we believe as school counselors that we are here to provide an atmosphere of security, warmth, and encouragement as your students work to reach their full potential in the areas of academic, social, and personal character development. As school counselors, we're committed to establishing a sound foundation as Archmere students successfully manage their lives and health as a healthy, responsible, productive citizens with respect for themselves and others. It's our goal also to make sure that we provide a safe and healthy atmosphere and provide a comprehensive service for all of our students. So we work closely with a learning specialist, Ms. Joyce Campion. I'm sure you guys know Ms. Campion very well. She's a phenomenal woman. And as you are aware, Ms. Rebecca Hendrickson has been working very hard over the summer to make sure that everyone can stay here at Archmere. And I think it's a great opportunity to have a full-time nurse on staff that is dedicated to making sure that your students have their health needs met and that we remain healthy as a community. In our office, we offer personalized support, and we seek to nurture all students' social and emotional well-being, which we hope that will encourage their academic development and their interpersonal success. As I mentioned before, Ms. Campion is our dedicated learning specialist that helps students develop strategies to find success in the classroom. And Ms. Hendrickson and all of us, we're all the staff, we're working to remain healthy, and we want to stay in person on campus. And so we're doing our best to make sure that happens. And I'm thanking you guys for doing your part to ensure that with us as well. So thank you very much. And last, our office is data driven. I believe that we are really taking a serious approach to making sure that we're listening to the needs of our students, our faculty, and our parents to make better programming and to make sure we're meeting all the needs of our students. So I guess you guys are asking what's currently going on with your students. You know, I'm as Madame Thiel mentioned, that I'm new, I'm back. I'm glad to be back at Archmere. It's a good feeling to be able to service your students and to come back in this role to really help them figure out who they want to be and guide them in that direction. And so, uh, with the nature of things going on with COVID-19, we wanted to make sure that we have a way in which students can still come into our office and we're readily available to them. So we have created an online appointment scheduler. And I'll show you that towards my last slide about if you would like to contact us as well and schedule an appointment, you can schedule with myself through the online appointment scheduler. I am definitely meeting with the students now to discuss individual meetings and review their goals and needs. I just sent them a get to know you survey. So most of your students have filled that out. And so we begin our meetings, our initial meetings tomorrow. And I'm packed between now and next week. In the beginning of the year, when I first arrived, Katie mentioned to you that I have a dual role. I am also the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we're working with the staff and the students to really understand what our needs are around these areas. And so there was a survey that went out to the students in the beginning of the year, and we are just getting the results back to start to analyze and see what they're looking for as far as programming. So please stay tuned, because we definitely want to keep you informed about what we're going to do in this area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today was pretty cool. We had a virtual activities fair. Our office sponsors all the clubs and activities, as you guys are well aware. And so incorporating what I just mentioned to you about diversity, equity, and inclusion really quickly, we did a capture the flag competition in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was a great opportunity and a great way for students to engage and learn about the different countries. And so it was a good experiment, and it was a good time to really capture C Day. I mean, it was just a good day all around. We had great weather, great energy. The students seemed really engaged. So I think we are working together to figure out how C Day is going to work, but trust us, we are working to make sure everyone's engaged, happy, and satisfied. So please give us your feedback. Let us know what your students are saying so we can only make it better. And lastly, this is the online way that you can schedule an appointment with me. Obviously, you can directly email me, danielle.dove@archmere.com, but any event you would like to take the schedule down, you'll be able to see my calendar and to see when I'm available, and then you and I could have a meeting. I'm looking forward again to talking to you and working with your children. Please contact me if you have any concerns or questions. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Dove. So last but not least, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bohm, Ms. Souza, and Mr. Duffy, our college counselors, who will round out the evening.
Chris, you're muted. Mr. Bohm, you're muted if you're talking.
There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. Faux pas. I was just saying the headphones are a hazard in my house. My house must be a little louder than everybody else's, so sorry about that. Welcome. We're going to try and be very efficient tonight in our delivery. Junior year has been referenced in terms of a college year, I think just about by every speaker so far. Want to go over a few things, but also with the knowledge that we'll have a junior parent night for college counseling specifically in December and January that we'll get into even more specifics, and obviously always welcome your questions. This is our staff. We're extremely excited to introduce Logan Duffy as a college counselor. Logan, you also probably know, is the Associate Director of Admission at Archmere, but he also comes to us with over 10 years of college admissions experience as well as coaching and recruiting experience. So Logan's going to take on, Mr. Duffy, is going to take on a few members of the class of 2022 this year. Those families have already been reached out to. in terms of expanding the personal attention of our office. So we're really excited to have Logan. With Logan and Mrs. Lyon, Ms. Souza, and myself, we have over 50 years of college counseling and college admission experience, mostly coming from the other members of the staff. I'm much too young to have that many years of experience. For those of you who may not know how the structure works in terms of college counseling, I think sometimes we'll talk about guidance and a transition to college counseling. I think transition is not a good word to use. We work together. The college counseling assignments, the counseling load comes out at the beginning of the junior year. So we're announcing right now, Ms. Souza will be taking A through LI. I will be taking LO through Z, except for a handful of families that I have previously worked with. And again, those families have been reached out to, and the students that Mr. Duffy is working with. We work in concert with guidance. So Ms. Dove is still the guidance counselor for the junior class, rising seniors for next year, and we're working with these students individually as their college counselors. I think that's important to know. That's about it, Ms. Souza. I'll move to the next slide for you.
Well, it's great to be here with everyone tonight. One of the things we always like to start off with and borrow some of Dr. Seuss here is you're in pretty good shape. And I say that very authentically. One of the things that we often hear as we start to engage with junior students and parents is that I'm behind. My child is behind. We're behind. I can promise you, please take a deep breath. You're not behind. No, it is far too early in the process for you to be behind. So please don't feel that way. Of course, there are things you can do, and we'll talk about some of those things, and this year we'll certainly ramp up those efforts, but it is far too early to be behind. We also like to take this opportunity to encourage, or rather discourage, families from needing to compare, and whether that's comparing your current child to a previous child and their search process. For those of you with multiple children, you probably are shaking your heads and thinking, yep, my children are incredibly different. Their processes are going to be different, but also in comparing to your students' peers, right? Those other students, right? So please do, again, we'll start off, you're in great shape, I promise.
I'm going to continue the Dr. Seuss theme, although I promise this is the last slide with Dr. Seuss in it. It's a drastic year for change. It impacted the class of 2020. It's greatly impacting the class of 2021. And it's really just too difficult to know how much it will impact the class of 2022. So we're not going to address a lot of that, especially in this presentation. As we move forward in the process, it's certainly going to be part of our conversation, but the changes are so fluid and they happen. Some of them are temporary changes. Some of them may become permanent changes. And it's really too much to go over in tonight's presentation, as well as the fact that it really will impact each family differently throughout the process. So these are the discussions that we will have individually, and probably some more specific discussions about coronavirus's impact on the college admissions, higher education when we have our parent nights in December and January.
We always like to take this opportunity to explain sort of the team effort of how we move through this process. And so I always like to, use an analogy of being on a boat. And so we're going to start with the most important person on the boat, which is the captain, and that's the student. Some of you are thinking, my student's not ready to be captain yet, and that is completely fine. Some of you are thinking, absolutely, my child is ready to take ownership and to really drive this boat. And again, we will meet you wherever you and your child are at in that process. But we are constantly throughout this process going to encourage you and your child to really allow them to be the owner, the decision maker, the priority setter, right? Again, they do this with our support, and we'll talk about both your support and the support of our staff, but they are really that captain. They are the one that answers questions. They are the one that introduces themselves. They are the one that at the end of this process finds their new home for the next 4 years. So again, we are constantly going to encourage, sometimes to a resistant student, to really take ownership of this process.
As the parent team member and as a parent of a high school senior this year, I have learned that the adjective patient should be in front of all of these titles. It takes a great amount of patience to work with your child through the college admissions process. There will be wonderful days. There will be frustrating days. There will be more frustrating days, and there will also be many rewarding days. As well. We want you to encourage your students. We want you to take advantage of those moments when they do want to talk about this process. And hopefully we have enough time that we can respect the moments where they're not willing to talk about it, because it probably won't be a healthy or a constructive conversation with them. We have heard from students through this process when their child will not talk to them. We're fine with being an arbitrator between that, but a lot of work for parents in terms of moving our children through this process, helping them in being part of that group that gives them really good advice, but also is aware of who their student is and how they shine, and sharing that with the counseling staff, but also encouraging their student through this process as well.
And then we as the counseling staff, right, and again, that being myself, Mr. Bone, Mr. Duffy, and Mrs. Lyon, are going to be that third piece of the boat or the ship. If I could continue my analogy, I consider the parent the kind of that first mate, and the counseling staff, we are more like the GPS. So our job is to help guide the student, and Mr. Bone's laughing at me. He knows I love this analogy. We are there to help guide, to help educate, to help counsel. We spent the entire day meeting with, through our seminar class, over 120 of the seniors today. And that is a lot of what we did: educating, advising, individually consulting with them, individually counseling them on different decisions. And then there's that process piece eventually that takes over. And I'll credit Mrs. Lyon. She deserves most of the credit when it comes to the process. And that is, and again, the behind the scenes work of making sure that everything gets to the colleges and all of that. Our job is to help with all of our experience, all of our kind of contacts in the higher education world, to help you and your children understand the process better and hopefully move through the process with slightly less stress, because we're more well equipped with the knowledge of what's happening, when, and why.
So the timeline, and this is usually when a few parents in the room when we're live whip out their cameras and start taking pictures. We're going to show this timeline over and over again. And if for any reason you would want a hard copy or you want this presentation, we're happy to share it with you. Just shoot me an email. We'll ship it out right away. We're not going to go over all of these. We're just going to highlight a couple different things. So this fall, we're really promoting an exploration, self-exploration a little bit. We're going to do some exercises eventually late in the fall, early in the spring in terms of self-exploration. But there's still the opportunity to do some college exploration as well, which will then also assist with the self-exploration. Now, things are different. Some colleges are open for visits, most are not. We are not promoting in-person visits unless a family is comfortable and the college itself is comfortable in terms of that. Virtual visits, though, are also available. Online tours, online information sessions, online panels, conversations with admissions professionals. So that part of the exploration process is what we're promoting. What we'd like is each student to either virtually or in person have visited 3 differing or contrasting schools by the time they have their first individual meeting with their college counselor in December or January. This would allow them to start talking about their fit factors. This is what I like. This is what I didn't like. And then we'll further work with them on terms of defining that fit factor. Why do you want a larger school? Why do you want to be close to urban? Why would you want to study engineering? And that helps them become more confident in the process. It will also eventually lead to a stronger application and a better application story. Go ahead, Ms. Souza.
Okay. As we look to spring of 2021, this is when we move into more of a productive phase as we start to get some things done. This may mean testing. This is certainly things like our college seminar class, the individual family meetings that will take place, career day, all of these different types of things. So we're still exploring things, but we're also starting to do some things towards the college process. And I would say when I talk with juniors, I usually say that things get going in November, but things really, really get going when we move to that second semester of this year. We kind of give them a semester to get their feet under them, and then we really move full steam ahead as we move to the second semester.
So what are the goals of our process? We want each of your children to feel supported through this process. A large part of our role is just answering questions, helping them with the nuances, getting rid of the minutia to allow their talents and their story to shine, to allow them to be comfortable with the process, to be confident in what they're doing, whether it's an interview or a visit or a conversation with a college representative, or it's writing their essay. We want them to be able to shine. We answer a whole lot of questions, and we answer sometimes the same question over and over and over again, and that's okay, because that's what your child needs. If that's what your child needs or you need to feel more comfortable about this process, we'll continue to answer those questions. We truly believe that this whole process is an amazing growth opportunity that prepares them better for the next stage. Over the next 18 months, your children will grow and mature and understand themselves so much better. And those of you who have older children understand this. I'm seeing it right now with my oldest. It's an opportunity for them to do self-reflection, to meet deadlines, to represent themselves in person, to represent themselves in writing, to make some really hard decisions, sometimes, unfortunately, to accept some really hard decisions. All of these will help them throughout the process, and we believe be better prepared for after they graduate from Archmere and they arrive on their new college home and they're on their own. They're required to be more independent. And finally, spring of their senior year, we want them to have a whole bunch of exciting options. And ultimately, if it's a hard decision for them to decide where they want to enroll, where they want to call home for the next 4 years after they leave Archmere, then everybody's done their job. Everyone's done a wonderful job. And that's the ultimate goal, that they have a lot of options that they're excited about, and a place that when on May 1st, they make their decision, or maybe a little earlier, but May 1st, they're wearing that t-shirt and they're standing on or sitting on the steps of St. Norbert. These faces are all smiling because they're all excited about their futures. They're all excited about where they're going to go after Archmere. There's a few tears shed on this day and also at graduation, because a lot of them, they just miss Archmere, but they know that they're excited about where they're going from here.
So I quickly want to go over what's coming next. And I preface this first by saying we appreciate your patience and understanding, as right now we are really in the weeds with our seniors. We are meeting with each of them individually. We are holding seminar. We are welcoming virtually, hopefully 100 different colleges this fall, writing individual letters of recommendation. So while we certainly can answer questions via email, our meetings will not take place until later in the year because of our seniors and our attention, and we will give the same attention to your students when they're seniors next year. But what's coming up? We will hold our college panel virtually this year. Of course, as coronavirus has taught us, we must be flexible and change things as necessary. So we will ask all students, junior students, to attend that panel virtually, and parents are welcome to. We will release that date shortly. Student meetings will happen individually first in 20 to 30 minute time frames starting in December and January. Each of your students will meet with us and we start to create that student counselor relationship. Tomorrow, you will get an email from Mrs. Lyon welcoming you to CALFO. CALFO is our online platform that we use for a variety of things related to college search. It holds a whole bunch of Archmere history related to college. There are student exploration opportunities, both in things like their learning styles and their future career, as well as exploration for colleges. This is also our data management system in terms of the college search and how we send out your child's information. Your child already has access to Salfo. We were able to get it done in person before we moved virtual last year, and this will be your introduction to it. So you will get an email tomorrow from Mrs. Lyon. As Mr. Bone mentioned, we'll have parent nights, one in December, one in January, also virtually, where we'll welcome you and talk even more at length about all of these things. We will do seminar and family meetings in the second semester, and we encourage you to visit My Archmere. On the resources page, there is a specific page for college counseling, and there are a whole bunch of resources, particularly for any of those that are ready to get started early and may not have access to us yet. There's a getting started guide when it comes to building a list. There are lists of lists. There are all sorts of different resources on there. So again, that's on your My Archmere page. We are very excited to get started with you in just a few months. And again, really look forward to continuing this dialogue and working with your children.
Thank you, college counselors. So we have got a lot of well-versed Archmere people on the call because the Q&A is not super hot at the moment, which is probably good because we're over time already. But college counselors, I did just want to pose one question that was a pre-registration question. The first part I can answer. The second part I do not know the answer to. So the first question is, when is the PSAT? I would let families know that October 14th is slated for our all-school testing day. I will tell you that just due to social distancing, the freshmen will likely not be taking the CWRA this year. But for the juniors, the junior parents, obviously, that this night pertains to, that will be the date for that test. But the follow-up question to that, Ms. Susan, Mr. Bohm, do those get sent directly to the college board? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you two take it away.
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Okay.
PSAT scores do not go to any colleges, universities. Now, if students select into the college service, schools can obtain their name and address in order to mail them information. And when they do that, they can search for certain students that meet a certain criteria. Madam Thiel. So if I'm an admissions director for a certain amount of money, I can purchase a certain amount of names that fall within a certain score range. But that's primarily just for doing what's called a search mailing. So I'm not looking at those students individually. I'm just looking to get the attention of a whole bunch of high school juniors and send them a huge mailing and see if they return it to see if they are interested. But PSAT scores do not go individually to colleges, nor this year's a weird year. So some schools have said, hey, you can send us your PSAT scores in lieu of the fact that some students don't have SAT scores. I don't foresee that happening into next year. But then again, I didn't think we'd be where we're at right now. So never say never. But that was a real long answer. I'm sorry, Madam Thiel, but the answer is no.
Perfect. And then just two quick questions that came in. They do not need to pre-register for the PSATs because that's automatically done through Mr. Jezik, our testing coordinator. And then in terms of SATs moving forward, is the December 5th date still a date that's recommended?
So I'll take this one, Mr. Bohm. So the testing timeline for most students is actually going to be the March SAT is typically the first test that we recommend. That is for two reasons. One, it aligns well with our math curriculum for most students. So students that are enrolled in Honors Algebra 2 or Trig or College Prep Algebra 2 or Trig are well prepared mathematically to succeed on the March SAT. If you have a student that might be in an advanced math, an honors math analysis, or AP Calc or higher this year, they may be prepared to take the December exam, though there is no rush. I will also caution families, at this point, 60% of Archmere seniors do not yet have a score, and that is very representative of the entire country, and it may be difficult to get a test in under a student's belt in 2020, and don't feel rushed to. So if your student is mathematically prepared and excited to take the SAT, and you can find a seat for them and feel comfortable safety-wise for them to take it in December, then that may be the best decision for your family. Otherwise, there is not a huge rush. March, the other reason we recommend it is that Archmere is typically a testing site. Now, of course, we'll see health and safety-wise if that continues to be the case, but that is typically one of the reasons that we suggest March as well.
We could jump in just on one other thing. I mean, you can register for a test right now, your child can put a lot of time in preparing for that test potentially, and it may never happen. I sat with a young lady yesterday to register for the November SATs at St. Joe's Prep. She signed up for that. I texted my friend at St. Joe's Prep. She said, yeah, it's probably unlikely we're going to host that. That's the environment, unfortunately, that we're in. I know we've had some preliminary discussions with Mr. Jezik about if we're still in a health pandemic in the spring, potentially offering some school day testing because of the fact we want our students to have test scores. We think that that's important, but if we can do it in a healthier, safer environment, I think that's the choice that we would like to go with. But again, everything's changing so drastically, and more so this time of year, it's bad news in terms of cancellations, and those are things that we cannot control at this point.
And Madame Theo, I saw that ACT, and there is a testing guide that was updated this summer that answers some of these questions as well. The ACT is offered different months. So December happens to be one of the few where there is both an SAT and ACT. It's the same answer for those as well. But specifically on that My Resources, there's a testing guide that lists what dates they're available or months they're available, as well as some of these other questions.
Great. And then my neighbors just had baby twins and they are crying out back. And so I apologize if you hear small children crying behind me. But I just wanted to answer 2 pre-registration questions and then answer one last question that's in the Q&A. A family had asked, how long are the science labs? They are 70 minutes long, so just over an hour. And we had our first day of those today. And then additionally, another question was asked about clubs on C days. Clubs will continue to meet sort of normally whenever it's convenient for students and their moderator, but C Day is really the day that we're pushing because people have a little bit more flexibility. So your son or daughter should have had the opportunity today to sort of sign up for clubs and activities that interest them, and those will obviously ramp up over the next few weeks. And then our last question that we'll take for this evening, how should students sign up? Will they be guided on those timelines? I mean, the answer is yes, they're always guided on timelines by your office. But in terms of signing up, that would be something that's done directly through the College Board, correct?
Yep, through the College Board or the ACT. So the College Board is the organization that does the PSATs, SATs, AP, and subject tests, and the ACT is the organization responsible for those exams. Both the links to those are available on that testing guide on the resources page.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in this evening. We hope it was informative. Of course, please stay in touch if there's questions or concerns that you have beyond the scope of this webinar, and wishing you all a restful evening. We look forward to seeing your sons and daughters back on campus tomorrow. So take care, everyone. Bye.